Hello Internet, and welcome to American Geordies. Me and my friend have started this channel in direct inspiration to Friendly Geordies, a indie journalist down in Australia who covers stories almost mostly focused on Labour Party issues and corrupt politicians. I would like to get to that same level of aggressiveness, but for now I'm going to do reports on things I can have easily available through the internet. And so today I am doing a report on livable wages and how many of you actually make them. You probably already know the gist, but I'm going to get into the specific details with real numbers with good sources. In 2022, the average individual income was $61,900. The average household income was $106,400, based on reports by the Bureau of Labor Statistics and Census.gov, respectively. Also, according to Census.org, the median income is $74,500, which, according to their chart referenced below, is around the 50th percentile. That all checks out. The median is the middle. It should be the middle. But if you double that, you get $149,150, which, also looking at their chart, puts them in the 80th percentile. Now, I'm not the biggest math guy, but I know enough. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong about this. If double the median lands in the 80th percentile, to me that means that 20% of their data points are considered outliers. You know, when you do statistics, there are a certain threshold for when something becomes an outlier, and you just don't really count it when you're doing your math, because it's just so out there and so different, it would skew all the numbers. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I would love to be wrong about that. But I am very well aware that our top 20% of people are rich as hell. But I won't get too into that before I know how the data actually works. Going on, a livable wage calculator designed by MIT came up with a livable wage at replacement level. Replacement level is this term for when a generation is able to perfectly replace their population for the next generation. That is when two parents have two kids. They estimate this value to be $104,077.70. It's different for every state, but this is the national average. So if you live in the US, chances are this is how much it costs to live at replacement level. The calculator estimates this to be $25 an hour for two working adults, or $50 an hour for one working adult and one stay-at-home parent. This household income lands in the 63rd percentile, meaning only 37% of Americans can afford this, which is crazy. We will definitely not meet replacement level if only 37% of Americans can afford to meet replacement level. And 20% of that is our richest people, apparently. So getting a job for at 25 an hour is very difficult without higher education or fighting for promotions. And you might say that it's on us to get that higher education. But if you put that on us, my generation will say, if it's going to be on us to pursue higher education, you just aren't going to get those kids. Let's step back and look at those people who, like me, only have to support ourselves. One person, one household, one income. The calculator estimates this to be about $36K, which, by the way, is more than I make, and I'm not going to try to be too grumpy about that. This falls in the 25th percentile. That means 75% of Americans can afford to live on their own, and there's 25% that can't. There's a quarter that can't. Let that sink in. Now, that is a minority, and it could be worse. It could be 60% or 70%. No, it's 25. It's a quarter. I would like to see it closer to like 10%. That's where I think it should be. Most people can afford to live on their own. This is about $17 an hour if you work 40 hours a week for 52 weeks a year, which is how many weeks are in a year. After taxes, though, it's closer to like $20 to $22 an hour. You can find a job straight out of high school that pays that much. Your chances might be slim depending on where you live, but for the most part, you can, if you look hard enough, find a job that pays that much. Now, let's not confuse livable wage with staying alive. Have you heard the term subsistence wage? A subsistence wage is defined as the biological minimum to stay alive. The philosophy behind this originally was minimum wage. The minimum wage was at one point supposed to be the biological minimum. The national minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, and if you find a minimum wage job that's actually willing to let you work 40 hours a week, you'd get paid $15K in a year. Love to do the math to see how much you'd have to sacrifice to live off $15K a year. It's probably not easy. I can think of some tricks I use when I'm trying to save money, but it would not be fun for anyone. So going on, you've learned about how only 37% of Americans can afford to replace the generation, how 25% of Americans can't afford to live comfortably, how 25% of Americans can't afford to live comfortably, and how there might be 20% of our richest people being considered outliers in the math. I don't like saying any of this. I didn't like reading any of this. I didn't like researching this. It is very depressing. I would like to see us fighting for more pay, more rights, and less money to those 20%. Because if it's those 20% hoarding all the wealth is the reason that we've got to be cut so down in the front half of the stats in order to be financially stable, that's not how it should work. Theoretically, those 20% would be sharing enough wealth. The amount of people that could afford to live would be closer to like 90 to 95%. I would like to see Americans push for their own Labor Party, a party founded by union leaders, by trade skill workers, by people who have worked, had the civilian life, know the struggles of being a civilian. That would help displace these career politicians who were born to nice families, put into private schools, forced through expensive colleges just to go straight into being politicians. They are living and dying as nobles in a country where nobles aren't supposed to exist. That's not a good thing. Business owners aren't much better. It needs to be us in those spots. People who have worked in those spots in order to have the best interests for labor in Congress. So what now? You arm yourself with this knowledge. You arm your circle with this knowledge. Share it with your friends, your family. When your mom asks why you haven't had kids yet, point to this video and say, only 37% of Americans can comfortably. There's probably more than 37% of Americans having kids, but any more than 37% is considered below livable and getting closer to survivable. That's not the best childhood for them, I don't think. So again, point to this video, say, hey, this is why. They wouldn't be happy. Only 37% Americans can afford to have happy kids. Tell your mom you love her, though. She has your best interests at heart, I'm sure. We'd also like to cover stories on things more personal to your feelings, like how I covered the Aaron Bushnell situation. I do have more videos planned on the Palestine conflict in the future. I think the video after the next will be a timeline of the Palestine-Israeli conflict up to now. I was researching it as my primer, and I'm going to release it as your primer so we can all be on the same page when I start doing actual journalism on that topic. The next episode should be the Kroger-Albertsons merger, where I go into whether it's a monopoly or not. I also touch on unemployment insurance and what that means for really just California. That's the only state I really looked into unemployment insurance because that was one of the big examples of affected states when I was doing research on the Kroger-Albertsons murder. I'm rambling on. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to help boost my analytics, and share this video to share this information with your friends and help them be in the know about topics such as this. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.